What if the world's most daring entrepreneur found himself on the wrong side of history, live, on stage, with the cameras rolling and the audience hanging on every word? Elon Musk stood at the center of Harvard's Sanders Theater, flanked by flags and framed by marble columns, his expression caught somewhere between defiance and disbelief. Once hailed as a visionary, a pioneer of Mars, a savior of electric transportation, and a liberator of free speech, tonight he faced something he rarely encountered: raw, unfiltered, intellectual opposition from people who were once in awe of him. The invitation had seemed like a PR win, a keynote at Harvard to discuss innovation, government reform, and the future of America's technological infrastructure. But the moment he walked on stage, something felt off. The applause was polite, not passionate. Eyes weren't admiring, they were scrutinizing. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The event was live-streamed globally, the Harvard crest sitting prominently behind the podium, but the focus remained on Musk, his every breath, gesture, and word dissected in real time. He began confidently, speaking about his role at DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, a federal branch he had recently been tasked to lead. "The way we've been doing government is broken," he said, voice calm but authoritative. DOGE is about stripping away inefficiency, streamlining operations, and applying first principles thinking. Bureaucracy is the enemy of innovation. He launched into examples of agencies he'd consolidated, budgets he'd slashed, redundant roles he'd eliminated, touting them as victories for the taxpayer. But murmurs swept through the audience. Some students shook their heads. Professors exchanged glances. A few rows in, a young woman typed furiously on her laptop. He continued, unaware, or perhaps unconcerned, until a clear, deliberate voice echoed from the side of the stage. "Mr. Musk, with all due respect, what you've done is not innovation. It's demolition." The voice belonged to Dr. Emily Carter, Harvard's president, an economist and renowned advocate for civic infrastructure. She stepped forward without waiting to be introduced, challenging Musk's facts with surgical precision. "You fired 21 senior engineers from the Department of Digital Access. You shut down the Office of Public Technology in rural Appalachia. You rerouted emergency funding to build what, a proprietary app?" The auditorium held its breath. Musk tried to smile, brushing off her critique. "Emily, it's about making tough decisions. The future doesn't run on sentimentality." But Dr. Carter wasn't finished. She displayed a slide behind him, a leaked internal report from DOGE, indicating that several critical infrastructure projects had been halted due to budget reallocation toward a Musk-funded private database system. This isn't about sentiment. It's about service. The role of government is to serve the people, not build a new empire under your brand. The audience erupted. Half clapped, others jeered. Musk's eyes narrowed. "I've created more jobs in the private sector than this entire university has produced in a decade," he said, voice tight with restrained anger. "Isn't that what matters?" But Carter fired back. "You've created stockholder value, not stability. You've scaled speed, not equity. Your leadership style may work for rockets and cars, but people are not code. Public policy isn't something you can A/B test on a whim." Students began to cheer. Hashtags like #Harvard's Musk, #DOGEGIT, and #Musk Meltdown trended within minutes. Elon adjusted his mic, visibly shaken. "Look, I didn't come here to be attacked," he muttered. "I came to talk about solutions." Carter's reply was quiet but cutting. "Then maybe you should start listening." For the first time in his public career, Elon Musk looked cornered. This wasn't a Twitter spat. This wasn't a business earnings call he could dominate. This was Harvard. This was history, civics, ethics, all staring him down with facts, not fandom. The Q&A segment started, but instead of softball questions, students grilled him about his removal of community engagement teams, his dismissal of social service liaisons, and his implementation of algorithm-driven welfare reviews that denied assistance without appeal. He stumbled. "We're testing better models," he said weakly. "We'll adapt." But it wasn't enough. Someone shouted, "You're treating people like beta testers." Laughter and applause followed. A freshman from the Kennedy School read aloud a quote from one of Musk's internal memos: "Remove human redundancy at scale." The room went silent. Musk tried to explain, "That's about process efficiency, not people," but no one was convinced. In a single night, the narrative had shifted. He wasn't the genius innovator reshaping government. He was the outsider dismantling it. Carter closed the session with finality. "We don't fear change, Mr. Musk. We fear chaos disguised as progress." Her words cut deeper than any meme or viral clip. The live stream ended with an image of Musk sitting quietly, staring forward, no longer the disruptor in control of the room. Cameras caught his exit, flanked by aides, his phone buzzing non-stop. A tweet from the White House subtly distanced itself from Doge's recent moves. Major networks ran headlines like, "Harvard humbles Musk," and, "From tech titan to public villain." Elon disappeared from public view for 48 hours. No tweets. No press releases. No video appearances. Analysts speculated wildly. Was he regrouping? Resigning? Planning revenge? But the silence said more than any statement. For once, Elon Musk had no answer, and America noticed. The fallout continued into the weekend. Government watchdogs called for audits. The Senate Committee on Technology Oversight demanded a hearing. Civil servants who had resigned under Musk's tenure began speaking out, detailing rushed decisions, stripped programs, and top-down mandates with no room for appeal. Former supporters posted regretful threads online. "We wanted reform. We didn't want a wrecking ball." A prominent tech blogger wrote, "Musk learned the hard way, you can't run a democracy like a startup." Through it all, the video of Harvard's event racked up tens of millions of views. It became a case study in universities, a topic on political podcasts, a lightning rod for debate. Was Musk truly wrong, or just ahead of his time? Could public institutions adapt without icons like him bulldozing the old ways? The conversation continued, but the verdict in the public consciousness was clear: for once, Elon Musk had gone too far. And Harvard, calm, reasoned, and unflinching, had held the mirror to his face. In the days that followed, protesters gathered outside the Doge building in Washington, D.C., holding signs reading, "Tech is not equal to governance," and "Efficiency isn't empathy." Carter's final quote became a rallying cry for civil servants across the country. Musk, in rare form, made no attempt to fire back on social media. No late-night tweet storms. No sarcastic jabs. Just silence. Rumors swirled that he was preparing to step down from Doge, citing philosophical differences with the administration. As the week ended, a single tweet appeared on his feed: "Learning isn't always graceful. Thanks, Harvard." No one knew if it was sincere or strategic. But it marked something new: vulnerability. In a world where he always played offense, Musk had finally been forced into reflection. And Harvard, an institution often mocked for its ivory tower status, had landed a blow heard around the world. One that reminded everyone that intelligence, integrity, and institutional wisdom still held weight, even in the age of billionaires. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Long before the world saw Elon Musk as the man who was humbled live on Harvard's stage, he was just a boy in Pretoria, South Africa, awkward and misunderstood, hunched over books that most adults would never read, thinking in systems, dreaming in spaceflight. His mind was a universe far from the one around him, a place where fists settled arguments and conformity was currency. He was bullied relentlessly, thrown down staircases, beaten until his nose bled, laughed at for being weird, for talking too fast, for knowing too much. Even his father, Elon Musk, a brilliant but emotionally brutal man, offered little comfort. Elon would later call him a terrible human being. That house was built of silence and dominance, not warmth. And in that emotional vacuum, Elon retreated into fantasy, Isaac Asimov's robot series, Tolkien's world of myth, and eventually into the logic of computers. He taught himself programming at age 10 and sold his first game, Blaster, by 12. It wasn't the money that excited him, it was the idea that he could create something out of nothing. From that point on, control became his safe place. At 17, he left for Canada with little more than a backpack and a belief that America, with its wild mix of ambition and opportunity, would become his true home. At Queen's University, and later at the University of Pennsylvania, Elon met Justine Wilson, a fellow student and aspiring writer. Their connection was as cerebral as it was emotional. She admired his hunger, his vision, and the way he spoke about Mars like it was a reachable dream. He loved her defiance, her poetry, her refusal to shrink in his shadow. They married and had children, but cracks began to show. His obsession with work didn't just creep into their life, it consumed it. He slept at the office. He skipped family dinners. He expected Justine to operate like an engineer, not a partner. Eventually, the marriage collapsed, but not before producing a son who tragically died of SIDS at 10 weeks. It was a loss Elon rarely spoke of, as if acknowledging that kind of vulnerability would unravel him. Tesla and SpaceX were born out of chaos, financial, emotional, and professional. Musk risked everything multiple times, investing his own fortune to keep the companies afloat when others would have walked away. He thrived in pressure, in disruption, in the moments everyone else called failure. That wasn't bravery, it was conditioning. If you grew up feeling small and powerless, building rockets that could defy gravity wasn't just science, it was survival. Over the years, his relationships followed a pattern. He'd fall fast, charm hard, and then fracture the connection when the demands of work inevitably overtook any chance at normalcy. Tallulah Riley, Grimes, Shervon Zeles, they each saw different facets of him, but none stayed for long. His children were raised at arm's length, some at his experimental school, Ad Astra, others with mothers who tried to shield them from the weight of the Musk name. He wasn't cruel, but he was distant. To love Elon Musk meant accepting that you would never come first. The world always did. Still, to many, he was a messiah of the modern age. Investors threw billions at him. Governments bent policies to accommodate his ventures. He was on magazine covers, in documentaries, celebrated by tech bros and teenagers alike as the man who dared to make the impossible real. Colonizing Mars, implanting neural chips, building hyperloops, no idea was too wild. But success breeds ego, and ego clouds judgment. As Tesla's stock soared and SpaceX contracts multiplied, Elon began to see himself not just as a leader, but as a system, a force that didn't need to play by the rules. His Twitter feed became a battlefield. He mocked analysts, sparred with regulators, called cave divers pedophiles, and questioned the fundamentals of democracy. Some loved the chaos. Others winced. But the more he was challenged, the harder he pushed back. He began to believe that all systems, media, government, education, were broken and that only he had the courage to fix them. So when a group of political operatives approached him with the idea for DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, he saw it not as a challenge but a destiny. He would bring startup speed to bureaucracy. He would audit, automate, and annihilate red tape. The president, eager for tech-friendly headlines, gave him the nod. Critics were wary, but Musk's name carried weight. Within weeks, he was making sweeping changes, consolidating departments, slashing budgets, installing data dashboards to monitor civilian productivity in real time. Traditionalists screamed foul. Innovators applauded. Elon was unbothered. He believed the public sector needed disruption, and he was disruption incarnate. But in his rush to optimize, he ignored the human cost. Entire offices that handled food assistance were replaced with AI tools that flagged anomalies but couldn't interpret nuance. Veterans calling for benefits were routed through bots that glitched during peak hours. A school grant program that had taken years to build was shut down overnight because Elon deemed it low ROI. He viewed public feedback as noise, not signal. His engineers were hired from Tesla and Neuralink, brilliant minds who knew nothing of government ethics or accountability. The culture inside Doge became toxic. One whistleblower described it as Silicon Valley cosplay with real-world casualties. But Elon pushed on, convinced that resistance was proof he was doing something right. In meetings, he'd quote Napoleon, refer to himself as a wartime CEO, and dismiss critics as institutional parasites. His inner circle shrank. Advisors who questioned him were removed. The media sharpened its knives, but every exposé only seemed to deepen his resolve. He stopped attending briefings and began holding internal AMAs where staff submitted questions via code. The more he controlled, the more isolated he became. And then came the Harvard invitation. His team saw it as a redemption arc, a chance to reframe the narrative and speak directly to the brightest young minds in the country. Elon liked the symbolism. Harvard, the oldest American institution, meeting Musk, the avatar of the future. He expected polite debate, perhaps some tough questions, but ultimately, a respectful platform. What he didn't anticipate was confrontation. What he didn't see coming was a room full of people unwilling to be dazzled. His mistake wasn't arrogance, it was assuming that intelligence would always admire power. In reality, it often resists it. Dr. Emily Carter, the woman who would later steal headlines, had once admired Elon Musk deeply. She had written op-eds praising his vision, used SpaceX case studies in her economics lectures, and encouraged students to think like Musk. But watching Doge unravel critical safety nets changed her view. She saw students lose grant money. She saw community programs vanish overnight. She saw data-driven cruelty masquerading as efficiency. She wasn't attacking Elon on that stage. She was holding him accountable. And for the first time in decades, someone spoke to him not as a god, but as a man, flawed, brilliant, and dangerous when unchecked. In private, after the event, Musk didn't rage. He didn't scream. He sat alone in a quiet room backstage, scrolling through tweets, headlines, texts from allies offering soft condolences or awkward silence. His phone vibrated with a message from one of his older children, who had been watching the live stream. It read, "That was hard to watch. Are you okay?" He stared at the screen for a long time before replying, "Not really. But maybe I needed it." No one knew that part. No one saw the moment the mask cracked. Because even Elon Musk, iron-willed, logic-driven, endlessly defiant, was still the boy from Pretoria, still trying to prove he mattered, still building things to avoid being broken. The journey from outcast to icon had been meteoric. But the fall wasn't about failure. It was about reckoning. About understanding that brilliance isn't a shield against consequence. That control isn't the same as leadership. And that even the most celebrated minds must, at some point, answer to the people they claim to serve. The applause at Harvard had barely faded before the storm truly began. Within 12 hours of the live stream ending, the backlash against Elon Musk's policies as head of Doge ignited into a full-fledged national conversation. The confrontation at Harvard hadn't just been academic theater, it was the match that lit a fire under every simmering critic, disillusioned supporter, and abandoned civil servant across the country. That night, Musk didn't sleep. Instead, he watched footage of the event on repeat, each time pausing to analyze the moments where his voice cracked, where his responses fell flat, where Dr. Carter's precision dismantled his narrative. His team tried to rally around him, offering press angles, deflection strategies, and spin, but Elon wasn't interested. "I need to think," he said curtly. "No press. No tweets." He retreated inward, something he rarely did, while outside the gates of Doge's headquarters in Washington, D.C., discontent boiled over. The media dubbed it the efficiency crisis. Across dozens of government departments, confusion reigned. Musk's top-down mandates had bypassed traditional approval processes, and now, state offices were left holding broken systems. In Arizona, a welfare recipient named Lorna Field discovered her benefits had been cut due to a data mismatch in the new algorithm Musk's team had rushed into production. She spent 7 hours on hold before getting disconnected. In Michigan, veterans attempting to apply for housing vouchers were redirected to a web portal that hadn't been fully tested and crashed daily during business hours. Civil servants, once proud of their work, now felt like they were watching years of institution building be replaced with cold automation and half-finished apps. The internal chatter inside Doge turned toxic. Slack channels filled with nervous jokes and resignation countdowns. Managers pushed their teams to move faster, claiming Elon was watching. "Break what you must, fix it later," one project lead reportedly said. The problem was, what they broke wasn't just code. It was people. The staff attrition rate soared. In 1 month alone, 21 engineers and policy experts quit in protest, many writing public resignation letters accusing Doge of turning public service into a beta test for Musk's ego. The most damning came from Rachel Whitman, a senior systems architect who had worked for the Department of Health and Human Services before being recruited by Musk personally. Her open letter was titled, "We Are Not the Product," and it tore into the culture of blind optimization. Efficiency is meaningless when it amputates empathy. Government exists not to run lean but to ensure no one is left behind. What Elon Musk has built inside Doge is not innovation, it's institutional eugenics for the digital age. The piece went viral, shared by lawmakers, union leaders, and even former Tesla engineers who sympathized with the sentiment. Within 48 hours, Whitman was invited to testify before the Senate Committee on Technology Oversight. Headlines screamed betrayal, but inside Musk's inner circle, a deeper betrayal was already unfolding. Unbeknownst to Elon, his second-in-command at Doge, Nathan Granger, had begun feeding information to congressional investigators. Granger, a former DARPA executive with a quiet demeanor and a deep respect for public systems, had grown increasingly disturbed by Musk's disregard for the social consequences of his reforms. At first, he tried to influence Elon from within, proposing gradual rollouts, user testing, feedback loops. Musk waved him off. "That's bureaucratic thinking," he'd say. "We're not here to babysit inefficiency." Granger started documenting everything, meeting transcripts, Slack messages, emails that showed how decisions were made without impact studies, budget reallocations that violated existing contracts, and internal forecasts predicting widespread access loss if Doge's current path continued. It was a damning dossier, and it landed on the desk of Senator Angela Brewer, chair of the Oversight Committee, just days after the Harvard event. Public sentiment was shifting fast. The same Americans who once cheered Musk's disruptive bravado were now questioning the wisdom of putting a tech billionaire in charge of essential services. Polls showed a 20-point drop in trust toward Doge within a week. Musk's silence, once a hallmark of mystery and power, now read as guilt. Meanwhile, Dr. Emily Carter's moment at Harvard had elevated her into a reluctant icon. Interview requests poured in, her inbox flooded with messages from activists and civil servants thanking her for speaking truth to power. She remained composed and refused to gloat, issuing a single statement: "My intention was never to embarrass Mr. Musk. My duty is to the integrity of public service. Efficiency cannot come at the expense of humanity." Yet even as the external walls of Doge were collapsing, Elon remained defiant internally. "They're scared," he told his executive team in a late-night Zoom. "Scared of change. Scared of accountability. We're not backing down." But the cracks were everywhere. Doge's budget came under freeze. The Office of Management and Budget demanded an immediate audit. Legal complaints began to pile up, including a class action lawsuit filed by disabled Americans whose services had been disrupted by the new digital access portals. The White House distanced itself with a quiet statement: innovation must serve the people. We are monitoring the situation closely. Elon refused to step down. Let them come, he said. I didn't build rockets and electric cars just to be scared of a few bureaucrats. But this wasn't about being scared. This was about control slipping through his fingers. Inside his own ranks, dissent grew. Key engineers began pushing back on rollouts. Anonymous messages began appearing in the Doge internal newsletter, warning of a moral rot at the top. Musk called an emergency all-hands meeting and demanded loyalty. This is a war on mediocrity, he said. And you're either with me or against me. A few clapped. Most stayed silent. Outside, the protests grew louder. Civil servants marched with signs quoting Musk's own words: remove human redundancy at scale. It became a meme, a mockery, and a warning all in one. Senators Brewer and Lynn from California called for a formal investigation into Doge's operations, citing gross negligence, reckless restructuring, and potential civil rights violations. The once invincible image of Elon Musk was now caught in a loop of denials, leaked documents, and public outcry. A satirical skit on SNL featured a mock Doge office run like a Silicon Valley startup, complete with standing desks, ping-pong tables, and a chatbot named Elaine that denied benefits in rhyme. Elon watched it privately. He didn't laugh. He barely blinked. For the first time, he felt something he couldn't easily override. Loss of control. The final straw came when Granger's full dossier was published in The Atlantic. The article, titled "Code Over Country: Inside Elon Musk's Disruption of Government," laid bare the culture, choices, and consequences of Doge's reign. The story went deeper than headlines or memes. It painted a picture of a man who had mistaken systems for souls, who believed speed could substitute for wisdom, and who underestimated the weight of the public trust. Musk's defenders claimed it was a smear job. His critics called it the reckoning. The truth? It was a signal. The rising conflict wasn't about efficiency versus tradition. It was about what happens when vision is unchecked by humility, when genius forgets it is fallible, when power is too proud to listen. Elon Musk had spent his life overcoming odds, beating bullies, cheating death, laughing at short sellers, building companies no one believed in, but this time, the enemy wasn't external. It wasn't Twitter mobs or media skeptics. It was the silent, compounding truth that maybe, just maybe, he'd gone too far. And the system he tried to outthink was now preparing to outlast him. Elon Musk had never been one to retreat quietly, and in the face of growing scandal, mass resignations, a Senate investigation, and the public evisceration at Harvard, his instinct was not to apologize or explain but to go directly to the people. If the institutions were rejecting him, he would take his message to the streets, or more accurately, to a carefully planned national speaking tour titled "The Future of Governance." The optics were framed with care: a sleek, electric blue bus wrapped in digital graphics, slogans like "Code the Nation" and "Disrupt for Good," and a hashtag #GovRedefined. Each stop would feature a speech, a Q&A session, and a tech showcase highlighting Doge's most successful initiatives, handpicked to cast Musk in the best possible light. His communications team spun it as a listening tour, a return to transparency, an effort to engage directly with American citizens rather than through the distorted lenses of academia and politics. But the truth was clearer to his dwindling inner circle: this was damage control. The tour began in Texas, where he had loyal fan bases and heavy investments. The Austin Convention Center filled to capacity. Fans held up signs. "We still believe, tech saves lives," and "You can't cancel the future." Elon took the stage under dimmed lights and dramatic music, opening with the kind of line he'd used in product launches: "When people say something is impossible, I hear opportunity knocking." The crowd erupted. For a moment, the old magic returned. He spoke about government inefficiency like it was an outdated operating system. He talked about AI-enabled benefits assessments, blockchain for identity verification, and predictive modeling to prevent bureaucratic waste. He framed every criticism against him as proof that entrenched powers feared innovation. The audience cheered, but outside the venue, hundreds gathered in protest, holding placards reading, "People over code, I lost my benefits to a bug," and "We are not data points." A young mother cried in front of cameras, recounting how she lost housing assistance when Doge's new portal rejected her verification documents. Her child, clinging to her side, was silent but wide-eyed, a haunting image that went viral within hours. The second stop, in Denver, was more tense. The Q&A session was interrupted by activists who stood up in coordinated defiance, reading aloud names of civil servants who had resigned from Doge in protest. Security escorted them out, but not before one yelled, "Elon, you replaced justice with JavaScript." The clip spread like wildfire. Musk responded on stage, shaking his head. "We can't let emotional blackmail stop progress. If you want everything to stay the same, I'm not your guy." Yet the words rang hollow. The applause was thinner now. In Seattle, a hacker group projected a quote from Rachel Whitman's resignation letter onto the side of the event venue: "Efficiency without empathy is just cruelty in a hoodie." The image appeared across news feeds before security could shut off the power. In Minneapolis, Musk finally snapped. Midway through a carefully prepared presentation, a college student asked, "If government was so broken, why didn't you try to work with it instead of dismantling it?" Musk's smile dropped. "Because the system is a parasite," he snapped. "It feeds off taxpayer money and gives nothing back. I'm here to fix that." Gasps. Silence. Then murmuring. He tried to pivot, tried to crack a joke. "If I wanted to play nice, I'd be in law school," but the tone had shifted. Reporters quoted his remarks as evidence of contempt, not confidence. That night, even longtime supporters began expressing doubt. Backstage, his aides exchanged looks. "We're losing control of the narrative," one whispered. "He's not listening." On the surface, the tour rolled on, but cracks widened beneath. At each city, protest numbers swelled while audience sizes shrank. The crowds now included former government employees, social workers, and ordinary citizens affected by Doge's disruptions. In Philadelphia, a whistleblower handed out printed screenshots of Doge's internal documentation showing decision trees used to auto-deny benefits based on arbitrary flags Musk had once bragged about during a product sprint as streamlined morality. Then came the Boston return. Harvard again. Not an official stop, but an unannounced detour. Elon insisted on it. "I want to walk into that lion's den and show them I'm not afraid," he told his team. "We play offense." He arranged a pop-up lecture in Harvard Yard, open air, impromptu, with cameras and live streaming. The audience was mixed, some loyalists, some curious students, many prepared critics. Musk took the mic with force. "They say I don't understand governance. That I replaced compassion with code. But here's what I know, government as you know it is dead. The future belongs to those who build, not those who debate." From the crowd, a soft voice cut through, "Then why are so many people suffering?" It was a student, no more than 20, standing alone near the back. She held up her phone, playing a voicemail from her grandmother, who had lost her disability stipend due to Doge's automation failure. The voice on the recording was weary, afraid, asking if she could still afford her medication. The entire crowd fell silent. Elon paused. For once, he had no immediate response. "I'm sorry," he said at last. "That's not what we intended." But it was too late. Intentions had long been overridden by consequences. That clip became the defining moment of the tour. Not the applause lines. Not the demos. A crack in the armor. A rare admission of fault, unpolished and unrehearsed. Inside the Doge war room, chaos grew. Congress scheduled hearings. The General Accountability Office demanded Musk's presence to explain spending discrepancies. Granger, now a confirmed whistleblower, appeared on 60 Minutes, describing Doge as an experiment that lost its soul. Musk's own leadership team began to fracture. Some urged him to resign. Others ghosted entirely. Former allies in Silicon Valley offered tepid support or none at all. The tour that began as a triumphant rebrand had become a parade of reckoning. And still, Elon refused to concede. "They don't see the big picture," he muttered one night to himself in the back of the bus, staring out at an empty parking lot after a cancelled stop in Columbus. "They can't imagine what I'm trying to build." But even he could feel it, something fundamental had shifted. The public no longer looked at him as the man who could do no wrong. Now, he was the man who'd refused to listen, who tried to rebuild the system without understanding the humans inside it. As the tour neared its final leg, Elon received a private letter. It was from Justine, his first wife. She wrote with compassion, but also bluntness, "You've spent your whole life trying to conquer failure, Elon. But sometimes, what matters more is how you handle being wrong." He read it twice, then a third time, but didn't respond. He just stared at the words. The next morning, as the team prepped for what was meant to be the final rally in D.C., Musk stood in front of the mirror in his hotel room, tie undone, collar open, eyes tired. "Maybe this is the pivot point," he whispered, not to his aides, not to a crowd, not to a live stream. Just to himself. The tour had ended not with thunder but with exhaustion. And in that weariness, a new chapter quietly began, the beginning of something Elon Musk hadn't yet mastered: humility. The stage was set inside the grand chamber of the Senate Committee on Technology Oversight, a room heavy with history and expectation. Cameras flashed as reporters filled every seat, live streams transmitting to millions across the country. Elon Musk arrived, flanked by his legal team and a few loyal aides, but the atmosphere was unlike any he had faced before. Gone was the cheering crowd or the gleaming product launches. Here, the air was thick with scrutiny, the kind that made even the most confident pause. Senator Angela Brewer, chair of the committee and a woman known for her sharp intellect and no-nonsense approach, opened the session with a pointed statement. "Mr. Musk, your leadership of Doge has brought us to a critical juncture. Lives have been disrupted, systems dismantled without adequate oversight, and trust in government shaken. Today, you will answer for these consequences." Elon's jaw tightened. He had prepared extensively, memorizing facts, rehearsing answers, yet this moment was different. This was no longer a pitch or a press event, it was a reckoning. The first questions came swiftly. Why did you implement sweeping automation without sufficient testing or public consultation? How do you respond to allegations that Doge's algorithms discriminated against vulnerable populations? Can you explain the spike in service denials coinciding with your tenure? Elon answered with his usual technical precision, citing efficiency metrics and system upgrades. But as the questions deepened, a pattern emerged, a growing disconnect between his rhetoric and the human stories behind the data. When Senator Brewer asked, "Are you aware of the personal hardships caused by your policies?" the room seemed to hold its breath. Elon swallowed. "I believe the reforms would ultimately help more people," he said quietly. "Sometimes, to build something better, difficult choices must be made." Then came the moment that would define the hearing. A young woman named Maya Williams, representing a coalition of civil rights advocates and former Doge employees, was called to the witness stand. Her testimony was raw and heartfelt. She spoke of families losing healthcare coverage, of disabled veterans denied benefits, of elderly citizens locked out of essential services because the system failed to recognize them. Tears welled in the eyes of several senators. Maya held up a photograph of her own mother, bedridden and reliant on government support, whose care had been jeopardized by Doge's faulty rollout. "This isn't just code," she said. "It's people's lives." Elon looked at the image and for the first time, the weight of his decisions hit him in full. His usual defenses faltered, his gaze dropping. When it was his turn to respond, his voice was different, more measured, less certain. "I never intended harm," he said. I thought we were building a better future, but I see now that intention is not enough." The room was silent, the magnitude of his words resonating deeply. Behind the scenes, news outlets pounced on the moment. Headlines ranged from "Musk's moment of truth" to "The billionaire who miscalculated humanity." Social media exploded with debates, memes, and heartfelt stories from those affected. This hearing wasn't just about policy, it was a national conversation about the limits of technology, the responsibilities of leadership, and the value of empathy. In the days that followed, Elon made a rare public appearance in an interview with a respected journalist. The conversation peeled back layers rarely seen. He spoke candidly about the pressures he faced, the mistakes made in haste, and the toll of relentless ambition. "I'm not perfect," he admitted. "I thought I could solve problems with algorithms and speed, but I underestimated the complexity of human needs." The interview sparked both praise for his honesty and criticism for prior missteps. Meanwhile, Doge's board convened emergency sessions. Under immense pressure, they agreed to implement sweeping changes, independent audits, reinstating human oversight in critical decisions, and launching support programs for those impacted. Elon volunteered to lead the reform efforts personally, a symbolic gesture signaling a shift from unilateral command to collaborative stewardship. Yet the emotional climax wasn't just in the public or political arenas. It was deeply personal. Elon's relationships, strained for years, began to fracture further. Justine's letter resurfaced in his mind, the words echoing louder now. He realized that his relentless drive had blinded him to those closest to him. He reached out to friends and family, seeking forgiveness and grounding. The process was painful and humbling. In a quiet moment, alone in his study, Elon wrote a reflection that he never intended to share publicly. He admitted his failures, expressed regret, and outlined a vision for a future where technology and humanity coexisted, where leaders listened before acting, where progress meant lifting everyone, not just some. This internal reckoning fueled his renewed commitment. The story's emotional peak wasn't a single event but a transformation, the fall of a titan humbled by truth, the emergence of a leader learning that power is not just about innovation but responsibility. The nation watched as Elon Musk, once invincible, embraced vulnerability. The message was clear, even the brightest minds must reckon with their humanity. Life is not just about disruption, it's about connection. In the months following the Senate hearing and his emotional admission, Elon Musk's world began to shift in ways no algorithm could have predicted. The fierce public scrutiny that once threatened to engulf him slowly gave way to a cautious curiosity, as many Americans watched to see what the man who dared to challenge the government would do next. Musk didn't disappear from the headlines, but the tone of the stories changed, from scandal to redemption, from conflict to a fragile hope. The once unstoppable innovator was now engaged in a painstaking process of rebuilding not just a company or a system, but a fractured trust with the very people he aimed to serve. Back at Doge headquarters, the atmosphere was markedly different. The energy buzzed not from the rush of breaking new technological ground, but from meetings focused on empathy, policy, and collaboration. Elon had instituted a culture shift, emphasizing transparency and listening sessions with employees and citizens alike. The engineers who once worked in silos now partnered closely with social workers, community organizers, and ethicists. One notable initiative was the establishment of a Human Impact Board, tasked with reviewing every major decision to assess its potential effects on real people. This board included representatives from affected communities, government officials, and even critics of Musk's prior approach. Elon participated in these meetings not as a distant CEO but as a learner, often asking questions and taking notes. His aides noticed a change in him. The man who once dismissed dissent as obstruction now sought out dissenting voices. "I want to understand," he told a longtime advisor. "Not just the code, but the consequences." Outside the walls of Doge, Musk embarked on a new speaking tour, distinct from the earlier, confrontational one. This time, it was called Listening to America. It was less about grand speeches and more about dialogues. Town halls where citizens could share their experiences and concerns. Elon arrived without grand fanfare, often without the media present, sitting quietly as people spoke. At one such town hall in Detroit, a middle-aged man named Carlos recounted how his wife had been denied disability benefits due to a glitch in the automated system. "We lost her medication for 2 months," Carlos said, voice breaking. Elon listened intently, then promised to look into the case personally. It was a small gesture, but it rippled through communities, showing that the billionaire was not untouchable but accountable. Harvard University, which had been at the epicenter of the public humiliation, played an unexpected role in this new chapter. After months of tension, Musk reached out to Professor Rachel Whitman, the former Harvard policy expert who had penned the damning resignation letter that had gone viral. The two met quietly in Cambridge over coffee, far from the media spotlight. Their conversation was candid and complex. Rachel didn't mince words, telling Musk that his vision needed a moral compass. Musk, in turn, acknowledged that he had underestimated the social dimensions of governance. "You helped me see that efficiency alone isn't progress," he said. "I want to find a way to build better systems that don't sacrifice people along the way." Their meeting led to a collaboration between DOGE and Harvard's Government Innovation Lab to develop ethical frameworks for automation in public services. Together, they worked on pilot programs that balanced technology with human oversight, emphasizing dignity and fairness. The narrative that had once cast Elon Musk as a reckless disruptor began to evolve. It was not a story of unrepentant ambition but of growth through hardship. Public opinion polls reflected a gradual softening. Trust in DOGE and Musk showed tentative signs of recovery, especially among younger Americans who valued innovation tempered by responsibility. On the personal front, Elon's relationships slowly healed. His reconciliation with Justine was cautious but meaningful. They spoke more openly, sharing reflections on past mistakes and hopes for the future. Justine's influence helped Elon stay grounded, reminding him that success without connection was hollow. Through these experiences, Elon gained a profound lesson: leadership is not about proving infallibility but about embracing imperfection. One evening, reflecting on everything that had transpired, Elon penned a message to his employees and the public, titled, "Why I'm Changing." He wrote, "I once believed that technology could replace flawed systems, that speed and code could fix centuries of bureaucracy. But I was wrong. People are not data points, they are stories, lives, and hopes. Moving forward, DOGE will build not only with innovation but with empathy. We will listen first, act second." The letter was met with mixed reactions but mostly hope. It became a beacon for those weary of cold technocracy, a reminder that progress could be human-centered. The broader message of Elon Musk's journey echoed beyond his own story. It touched on the American experience itself, one of resilience, reinvention, and the constant balancing act between ambition and humility. Life, as Elon came to see it, was indeed full of surprises, some painful, some uplifting. But in every twist and turn, love, family, and sacrifice were the forces that truly led the way. As the sun set on this chapter of his life, Elon stood once more in front of an audience, not as a figure of controversy, but as a symbol of transformation. The applause was quieter, more thoughtful. This was not the end of his story but the beginning of a new one. One written with a deeper understanding of what it means to lead, to serve, and to grow. And for America, it was a reminder that even the brightest stars must sometimes fall to shine more brilliantly. As the dust settled from the public and personal upheavals, Elon Musk found himself at a crossroads unlike any before. The sharp edges of controversy had dulled slightly, but the path ahead remained uncertain and fraught with challenges. This new chapter demanded more than technological prowess, it required emotional intelligence, political savvy, and an unwavering commitment to rebuild trust. His renewed efforts with DOGE and Harvard's Government Innovation Lab were underway, but progress was slow and often painful. Meetings were filled with tough questions and heated debates as engineers, policymakers, and community advocates clashed over priorities. Elon was no longer the sole visionary dictating terms, he was a participant in a complex, sometimes frustrating dialogue. Yet, this shift ignited a transformation in his leadership style. Instead of bulldozing forward, he began listening, truly listening, to feedback from unexpected places, frontline social workers, frustrated citizens, and even former critics. One of the pivotal moments came during a community forum in San Francisco, where a group of veterans spoke candidly about the barriers they faced navigating the new automated systems. One woman, named Maria, shared how the loss of benefits had pushed her family to the brink of homelessness. Her story was a stark reminder that behind every data point was a human life. Elon's response was measured but heartfelt. He acknowledged past mistakes and committed Doge to creating a dedicated veteran support unit, staffed with case managers trained to assist those whom automation had failed. This initiative became a model for incorporating human compassion into technological systems, reflecting a broader shift in Musk's approach. Meanwhile, Harvard's role expanded. The collaboration with Musk led to a research symposium focused on ethics in automated governance. Scholars, technologists, and policymakers gathered to explore the intersection of AI, public policy, and social justice. Elon spoke openly at the event, emphasizing that innovation without ethical grounding was not progress but peril. He unveiled a pilot project designed with ethical safeguards, including human review panels and transparent algorithms subject to public audit. The initiative received cautious praise, signaling a tentative reconciliation between Musk's vision and academic rigor. However, not all were convinced. Skeptics remained vocal, pointing to the scale of harm caused by earlier mistakes and questioning whether Musk could truly change. Activists organized protests during Musk's appearances, demanding greater accountability and more inclusive governance. These tensions highlighted a persistent divide between technology's promise and its societal impact. In response, Elon embraced a more collaborative political stance. He reached out to lawmakers across the aisle, offering to serve as an advisor on technology policy. His willingness to engage with diverse perspectives marked a new chapter in his public persona, one less combative, more bridge-building. The personal side of Elon's journey was equally profound. He devoted more time to family and close friends, understanding that connection was as vital as innovation. His renewed relationship with Justine deepened, grounded in mutual respect and forgiveness. He also began mentoring young entrepreneurs, sharing lessons learned from failure and redemption. These moments of intimacy offered Elon a perspective long missing from his life. One that valued vulnerability as strength. The media narrative around Musk evolved as well. Profiles shifted from portrayals of a reckless disruptor to a complex figure grappling with the consequences of ambition. Documentaries and articles explored the nuance of his transformation, emphasizing that growth was neither linear nor easy. Public discourse expanded to include broader questions about how society integrates cutting-edge technology with human values. As the months turned into a year, Doge's reforms bore fruit. The system's efficiency improved without sacrificing empathy. Citizens reported greater satisfaction with services, and complaints declined. Independent audits confirmed increased transparency and fairness. Elon's commitment to humility and collaboration had turned a national controversy into a case study of responsible innovation. Yet, challenges remained. The political landscape was volatile, with shifting alliances and emerging technologies demanding constant vigilance. Musk knew that maintaining progress required sustained effort, not just bold gestures. He often reflected on his journey, reminding himself and others that the true measure of success was not how fast you could disrupt, but how thoughtfully you could rebuild. In a poignant moment, Elon returned to Harvard once more, this time invited as a guest lecturer rather than an adversary. Standing before a room of eager students, he shared his story, the rise, the fall, and the lessons learned. He urged them to balance ambition with empathy, innovation with responsibility. His message resonated deeply, inspiring a new generation to rethink the role of technology in society. The story of Elon Musk's public humiliation and subsequent redemption became a powerful narrative of transformation. It underscored the complexity of leadership in an age where technology can both uplift and harm. Through humility, listening, and a willingness to change, Elon discovered that true innovation required not just intellect but heart. Life's surprises, he now understood, were not obstacles but invitations, to grow, to connect, and to lead with compassion. As the chapter closed, the nation watched a man who once seemed invincible embrace his humanity, setting a precedent that progress is not a solo race but a collective journey. Despite the apparent progress, Elon Musk's journey was far from over. The public's memory was long, and the mistakes that once brought him low continued to shadow his every move. Each announcement, each innovation was met with a mix of skepticism and cautious optimism. Musk understood that redemption was not a destination but a continuous process, one requiring vigilance, honesty, and constant engagement. Early in this chapter of his life, Musk faced his greatest test yet when a new controversy erupted over privacy concerns related to Doge's data handling. A whistleblower revealed that, despite reforms, some data from vulnerable users had been improperly accessed by third parties. The news hit hard. Headlines screamed betrayal, politicians demanded hearings. For a moment, it seemed history might repeat itself. This crisis tested everything Musk had learned. Instead of evading blame or issuing vague denials, he held an urgent press conference. His tone was sober and transparent. "We failed to protect our users," he admitted. "This breach is unacceptable, and I take full responsibility. We will overhaul our security protocols and cooperate fully with investigators." His openness drew mixed reactions. Some lauded his honesty, others saw it as too little, too late. Behind the scenes, Musk worked tirelessly with cybersecurity experts to plug vulnerabilities and restore trust. This episode deepened his understanding of the complexities in managing vast data systems tied to human lives. It also galvanized his team to prioritize ethics in technology development, embedding privacy and security at the core of every project. Around the same time, Elon continued his partnership with Harvard and other academic institutions, expanding efforts to establish global standards for ethical AI governance. Workshops and conferences attracted diverse voices from technologists, ethicists, government officials, and civil society. Musk became a prominent advocate for creating regulatory frameworks that balanced innovation with rights protection. His speeches underscored that technology, no matter how advanced, must serve humanity, not exploit it. The personal toll of these battles was considerable. Elon's schedule was grueling. Days blurred into nights filled with meetings, strategy sessions, and public appearances. Yet, he made deliberate efforts to maintain a sense of normalcy. Weekend hikes with family, quiet dinners with close friends, moments of reflection in his home library, these were his anchors amid the storm. His relationship with Justine matured into a partnership marked by mutual support. She encouraged him to seek therapy and mindfulness practices to manage stress and remain grounded. Musk embraced these tools, discovering a newfound resilience and patience. The media, meanwhile, continued to dissect every move. Documentaries portrayed Musk's vulnerabilities alongside his genius, painting a portrait of a man wrestling with the consequences of unprecedented ambition. Editorials debated whether his transformation was genuine or strategic. Social media buzzed with hashtags calling for accountability and #MuskRedemption. Public opinion polls fluctuated, reflecting the nation's ambivalence. One particularly poignant moment occurred during a televised town hall where Elon faced tough questions from ordinary Americans. A middle school teacher named Jasmine asked how he planned to ensure that future technologies would not replicate past harms. Elon responded earnestly, describing new advisory boards that included community representatives and ethicists. "Technology must be designed with compassion and humility," he said. "We're learning from our mistakes and committed to doing better." This exchange humanized Musk in the eyes of many viewers, helping to bridge a gap once thought insurmountable. Meanwhile, Elon's companies began investing heavily in social impact initiatives. Doge launched scholarships for students from underserved communities pursuing STEM fields. New programs focused on retraining workers displaced by automation, offering career counseling and education grants. These efforts aimed to balance innovation with social responsibility, addressing systemic inequities that technology alone could not fix. Internationally, Musk's influence grew as he collaborated with governments and NGOs to tackle global challenges like climate change and digital inclusion. His advocacy for sustainable energy technologies aligned with urgent planetary needs, providing a platform to shift focus from controversy to contribution. However, this growth was not without opposition. Critics remained vigilant, scrutinizing Musk's projects for signs of overreach or ethical lapses. Legal battles arose over patent disputes and regulatory compliance. Activists staged protests calling for stricter controls on AI and corporate power. Musk engaged with these tensions, sometimes publicly clashing with detractors but increasingly seeking dialogue and compromise. His evolving stance reflected a broader awareness that leadership required humility and adaptability. As the story unfolded, Elon's personal reflections deepened. In private journals and interviews, he spoke of lessons learned, that vision without empathy is empty, that innovation must be accountable, and that true progress is measured not by profit but by impact on human dignity. He acknowledged the pain caused by his past decisions and expressed a commitment to legacy building, not just through technology but through mentorship and philanthropy. At Harvard, Musk was invited to participate in a new initiative called the Center for Responsible Innovation, focusing on ethical technology development and leadership training. His role as a visiting fellow allowed him to contribute to research and engage with students, fostering a culture of thoughtful innovation. This academic engagement further softened public perceptions and demonstrated Musk's dedication to long-term change. The emotional landscape of the narrative remained complex. Musk's vulnerabilities, once hidden behind bravado, were now embraced as sources of strength. The story highlighted the messy, nonlinear nature of growth, emphasizing that setbacks and failures were integral to meaningful transformation. The nation watched as a figure once defined by hubris evolved into a symbol of accountability and hope. Ultimately, this chapter underscored a fundamental truth: technology alone cannot solve society's problems. It must be guided by values, compassion, and collective responsibility. Elon Musk's journey from public humiliation to thoughtful leadership embodied this lesson, offering a roadmap for a future where innovation serves humanity's highest ideals. Despite the strides Elon Musk had made toward redemption, a new challenge emerged that threatened to unravel the progress painstakingly achieved. This challenge was not technological nor political, but deeply personal and public, an unexpected revelation from an old associate that resurfaced buried controversies and reignited media frenzy. The revelation centered around early dealings in Musk's career, involving a series of risky contracts and opaque financial arrangements that, although legal, cast shadows on his integrity and judgment. The exposé came at a time when Elon was gaining momentum as a reformed leader committed to transparency and ethics, making the timing particularly damaging. Headlines screamed, "Old scandals, new questions," and commentators debated whether Musk's past recklessness was truly behind him. The backlash threatened to overshadow the meaningful reforms he and his team had built in governance and ethics. In response, Musk took an unusual approach. He did not shy away or launch an aggressive PR campaign. Instead, he convened a press conference that surprised many with its candor and humility. He acknowledged the complexities of his past and admitted mistakes without defensiveness. "I am not perfect," he said. "I have made decisions early in my career that I would approach differently today. What matters is how we learn and grow." This admission was met with mixed reactions. Some viewed it as a sign of maturity, others as insufficient. Nonetheless, it marked a turning point in the narrative. Behind the scenes, Musk and his legal and communications teams embarked on a transparency initiative unprecedented for a corporate leader of his stature. They released detailed records and timelines, invited independent auditors, and established an open forum for public questions. This radical openness gradually quelled speculation and restored a measure of trust. Concurrently, Musk's personal life faced renewed scrutiny. The intense spotlight on his past strained relationships with family and close friends. Justine, his partner, stood firmly by his side, providing emotional support and counsel. She urged Elon to prioritize mental health and offered perspective rooted in their shared history of trials and triumphs. Musk embraced this support, deepening his commitment to personal growth beyond public image. At the same time, Musk intensified his philanthropic efforts, focusing on educational equity and environmental sustainability. He launched a foundation that funded innovative school programs in underserved communities and invested in clean energy projects with tangible local impact. These initiatives not only aligned with his values but also helped rebuild bridges with communities once skeptical of his intentions. Internationally, Musk expanded his collaborations with global leaders, emphasizing multilateral approaches to technology governance and climate action. His role as an advisor to international organizations underscored his evolving identity as a statesman of innovation, balancing national interests with global responsibilities. Academically, the partnership with Harvard deepened. Musk joined a multidisciplinary team working on a comprehensive framework for AI ethics and governance, seeking to influence policy at both national and international levels. The work tackled thorny issues such as bias in algorithms, data privacy, and the social implications of automation. Musk's contributions reflected his belief that technology must be a force for equitable progress. Despite these efforts, challenges persisted. Critics continued to question whether Musk's reinvention was genuine or a calculated strategy to regain influence. Activists and watchdog groups demanded ongoing oversight and accountability. Musk welcomed this scrutiny, viewing it as essential to maintaining integrity. Internally, his companies faced operational hurdles as they balanced innovation with increased regulatory demands and social expectations. Musk's leadership style evolved further, emphasizing collaboration, empathy, and ethical reflection. He invested in leadership development programs within his organizations, fostering a culture that valued diversity of thought and responsible decision-making. The media portrayal of Musk grew more nuanced, capturing the complexity of a figure wrestling with legacy, power, and purpose. Profiles highlighted his vulnerabilities and the difficult lessons learned, painting a portrait of growth and ongoing struggle. Social media conversations reflected this ambivalence, mixing admiration with skepticism, hope with caution. In the public sphere, Musk's engagements shifted toward dialogue and partnership. He participated in town halls, academic forums, and policy roundtables, listening to diverse perspectives and incorporating feedback into his initiatives. These interactions humanized him further and demonstrated a commitment to shared governance of technology. Throughout this turbulent period, Musk's personal reflections deepened. In interviews and writings, he spoke candidly about the challenges of leadership in a rapidly changing world. He emphasized the importance of humility, transparency, and the courage to face uncomfortable truths. His narrative became one not just of redemption but of continuous evolution. This chapter of Elon Musk's story underscored a vital lesson, that true leadership is measured not by past success or failure but by the willingness to confront one's flaws and work tirelessly toward improvement. It highlighted the inseparability of personal integrity and public trust in an era where technology shapes every aspect of life. As the chapter closed, the nation watched a man committed to navigating the complexities of power, responsibility, and humanity, embodying a model of leadership fit for the 21st century's challenges. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? With the glare of public scrutiny never fully fading, Elon Musk found himself compelled to not only confront external challenges but also to face the deeper internal conflicts that had fueled much of his past recklessness and drive. The success of his technological enterprises and his efforts at redemption had come at a steep personal cost, a toll that became impossible to ignore. His childhood memories, once compartmentalized and distant, began resurfacing with an intensity that demanded attention. Reflecting on his early years growing up in Pretoria, South Africa, Elon recalled the isolation he experienced as a shy, bookish boy, often lost in the worlds of science fiction and computers. His parents' tumultuous marriage, coupled with his father's sometimes harsh discipline, left emotional scars that shaped his relentless pursuit of achievement and recognition. The pressure to prove himself, to escape his past, had driven him into the intense work ethic and fearless innovation he was known for. Yet, that same drive had often blinded him to the needs of those around him, including friends, family, and even himself. Recognizing this, Musk committed to a journey of healing that extended beyond professional success. Therapy sessions, meditation, and candid conversations with loved ones became a regular part of his routine. These practices helped him build emotional resilience and develop empathy, qualities that had long eluded him. One particularly transformative moment came during a retreat organized by Harvard's Center for Responsible Innovation, where Musk was invited to participate in a week-long program exploring mindfulness and leadership. Immersed in the serene environment, surrounded by fellow innovators and ethicists, Elon confronted the vulnerability that had been buried beneath layers of ambition. He shared openly about his fears, failures, and hopes, forging bonds that transcended professional alliances. This newfound self-awareness influenced his leadership style profoundly. Musk began fostering more inclusive and supportive workplace cultures within his companies, encouraging employees to voice concerns and share ideas without fear of dismissal. He implemented mental health resources and prioritized work-life balance, recognizing that innovation thrived in environments where people felt valued and safe. These changes sparked gradual shifts in employee morale and productivity, drawing positive attention from industry peers. Simultaneously, Musk's relationship with the public evolved further. He became more accessible and transparent, utilizing social media not just for announcements but for genuine engagement. He hosted live Q&A sessions, answered difficult questions, and even acknowledged mistakes in real time. These gestures helped rebuild public trust and positioned Musk as a leader willing to learn and grow alongside society. At Harvard, Musk's role expanded into mentoring emerging entrepreneurs, many of whom grappled with balancing ambition and ethics in their own ventures. He shared his journey candidly, emphasizing that setbacks were integral to growth and that true innovation required humility. These mentorships became a source of inspiration for young leaders and a testament to Musk's commitment to shaping the future responsibly. The broader societal context added layers of complexity to Musk's path. The rapid advancement of AI, automation, and space exploration presented unprecedented ethical and regulatory challenges. Public debates about privacy, employment, and existential risks intensified. Musk found himself at the center of these discussions, leveraging his platforms to advocate for proactive governance and public engagement. His vision of technology as a tool for human flourishing resonated with many but also sparked critical scrutiny. One pivotal event was Musk's keynote at a global summit on AI ethics held at Harvard. In a packed auditorium, he articulated a vision that balanced optimism with caution, urging collaboration across disciplines and nations. He called for transparent algorithms, robust oversight, and inclusive policymaking, highlighting the dangers of unchecked technological power. The speech was widely covered and sparked renewed dialogue, reinforcing Musk's role as a thought leader in the responsible innovation movement. Despite these accomplishments, challenges persisted. Musk's companies faced setbacks, including technical failures and regulatory hurdles. Competitors emerged with disruptive innovations, and public patience occasionally waned. Yet, Musk's evolved approach allowed him to navigate these difficulties with grace and adaptability, viewing each obstacle as an opportunity to learn rather than a threat to his legacy. The media continued to explore Musk's transformation with nuanced storytelling. Documentaries and profiles emphasized the interplay between his personal evolution and public impact, portraying a man constantly striving to align his values with his actions. This complex narrative captivated audiences, reflecting broader societal tensions about technology's role in human life. Throughout this chapter, the emotional undercurrents of Musk's journey remained palpable. His struggles with vulnerability, the reconciliation of ambition with empathy, and the quest for meaningful connection added depth to his public persona. These themes resonated widely, humanizing a figure often seen as larger than life. As the chapter drew to a close, Elon Musk stood not as a flawless icon but as a deeply human leader, one who embodied the contradictions, challenges, and hopes of a world grappling with rapid change. His story offered a powerful reminder that redemption and growth are ongoing processes, requiring courage, honesty, and a willingness to embrace one's imperfections. The nation watched closely, inspired and challenged by his example, as the future of technology and humanity unfolded together. As Elon Musk's public transformation took root, a new and unexpected opportunity presented itself that would test his evolved leadership and vision in ways he had never imagined. The federal government, after years of deliberation and political gridlock, finally announced a historic initiative to revamp the nation's infrastructure with a focus on sustainability, advanced technology, and social equity. This multi-trillion-dollar project aimed to modernize transportation, energy, and communication networks across America while creating millions of jobs and addressing climate change. Recognizing Musk's expertise and renewed commitment to ethical innovation, the government invited him to lead a special advisory task force to help design and implement this ambitious plan. The announcement sent shockwaves through industry and political circles alike. Some hailed it as a brilliant move to harness Musk's ingenuity for public good, while others remained skeptical, recalling past controversies and questioning whether a corporate titan could effectively serve the public interest. Musk accepted the role with a blend of humility and determination. He understood that this was more than a career milestone, it was a chance to prove that technology and leadership could indeed serve the greater good. From the outset, Musk approached the task force with a collaborative mindset. He brought together experts from diverse fields, engineers, urban planners, environmentalists, community leaders, and policymakers, to ensure that the initiative addressed not only technical challenges but also social implications. His leadership style reflected his growth, open, empathetic, and focused on shared goals rather than ego or profit. Early meetings were intense, with passionate debates over priorities, budgets, and timelines. Some stakeholders pushed for rapid deployment of cutting-edge technologies, while others emphasized equity and community impact. Musk listened carefully, mediating conflicts and fostering a culture of mutual respect. His experience navigating complex projects and ethical dilemmas proved invaluable. As the task force moved forward, Musk championed several flagship projects. One involved deploying a nationwide network of ultra-fast electric vehicle chargers powered entirely by renewable energy, aiming to accelerate the transition away from fossil fuels. Another focused on upgrading public transit systems with autonomous vehicles designed for accessibility and safety. Additionally, the team worked on modernizing the power grid to enhance resilience and integrate distributed energy sources. These initiatives, while technically demanding, also required navigating regulatory hurdles, community concerns, and political negotiations. Musk's transparency and willingness to engage with critics helped build broad-based support. Public forums allowed citizens to voice opinions, shaping project designs and ensuring local needs were met. Throughout the process, Musk emphasized the human element. He often reminded his team and stakeholders that infrastructure was not just about technology but about people's daily lives, how they worked, traveled, and connected. This perspective shifted conversations and decisions toward more inclusive, thoughtful solutions. The media covered the task force's progress with keen interest. Interviews and documentaries highlighted Musk's role as a bridge between private innovation and public service. Commentators debated the challenges of balancing speed with accountability, excitement with caution. Social media buzzed with discussions about what a modern infrastructure meant for the future of work, environment, and equity. Musk used these platforms to communicate directly with the public, sharing updates, responding to questions, and acknowledging setbacks. This openness further humanized him and strengthened public trust. Behind the scenes, Musk's personal life reflected the changes unfolding in his professional world. His partnership with Justine deepened, grounded in mutual respect and shared values. They navigated the stresses of public attention together, finding solace in private moments and shared causes. Musk's children, inspired by his journey, became active in social and environmental initiatives, embodying a new generation's commitment to responsibility. The intensity of the task force's work sometimes took a toll on Musk's health and energy. Recognizing this, he prioritized self-care and delegation, empowering trusted leaders within his teams. This shift marked a departure from his earlier tendency to micromanage, signaling growth in trust and collaboration. As milestones were reached, the nation began to see tangible benefits. New electric vehicle corridors sprouted across highways, cutting emissions and boosting clean energy jobs. Urban transit improvements reduced commute times and increased accessibility for disabled and low-income residents. Power outages became less frequent thanks to grid upgrades and smart management systems. These successes fueled optimism and renewed faith in the possibility of a tech-driven, equitable future. However, not all challenges were technical. Political opposition, budget constraints, and unforeseen logistical issues required persistent negotiation and adaptation. Musk's resilience and diplomatic skills were tested repeatedly. At one point, a major supplier faced bankruptcy, threatening delays. Musk intervened personally to secure funding and restructure agreements, averting crisis. Another time, local activists protested certain infrastructure placements, citing environmental and cultural concerns. Musk engaged in dialogue, adjusting plans and investing in community benefits to reach consensus. These experiences reinforced Musk's belief that leadership demanded flexibility, humility, and genuine listening. Academically, Musk continued to contribute to Harvard Center for Responsible Innovation, sharing lessons from the task force's work. Case studies and seminars explored the complex interplay of technology, policy, and society in the infrastructure project. Students and faculty alike benefited from real-world insights, enriching academic discourse. Internationally, Musk's model of collaborative infrastructure development garnered attention. Several countries expressed interest in adapting the approach, inviting Musk and his team to advise on global initiatives addressing climate change and sustainable development. This expanding influence underscored Musk's evolution from controversial entrepreneur to visionary leader with a global impact. As this chapter of his life unfolded, Musk remained deeply aware of the stakes. The infrastructure initiative was not just a professional achievement but a societal experiment in integrating innovation, ethics, and democracy. He often reflected on the lessons from his past, how mistakes had taught him the importance of accountability, empathy, and transparency. These lessons guided every decision. The emotional undercurrents of the journey were profound. Musk confronted doubts, criticism, and the weight of public expectation, yet found renewed purpose in collaboration and service. His story became a powerful example of how personal growth and leadership could intertwine to address the world's most pressing challenges. As the chapter closed, Elon Musk stood at a crossroads of opportunity and responsibility. The infrastructure project represented a new frontier, not just in technology, but in redefining the social contract between innovation and society. The nation, watching closely, recognized in Musk a symbol of hope and complexity, a leader who had stumbled, learned, and was now striving to build a future grounded in shared values and collective progress. The momentum generated by the infrastructure project propelled Elon Musk into a new realm of influence and scrutiny. As the nation's eyes followed the ambitious transformation of its roads, transit, and energy systems, questions arose about the long-term implications of Musk's leadership style and vision for the future. Critics and supporters alike debated whether Musk's approach was sustainable, equitable, and truly in the public interest. In this heightened atmosphere, a critical event unfolded that would challenge Musk's philosophy and test the durability of his evolved persona. A prominent whistleblower from within one of Musk's companies came forward with allegations that certain safety protocols in autonomous vehicle testing had been overlooked or compromised to meet aggressive deployment deadlines. The accusations quickly became a media storm, raising urgent concerns about the ethics and responsibility of rapid technological innovation. Musk's initial reaction was swift and unapologetic, emphasizing his commitment to progress and framing setbacks as inevitable in pioneering work. However, as more details emerged and public pressure intensified, Musk shifted to a more reflective stance. He acknowledged that the pursuit of innovation must never come at the expense of safety or public trust. This acknowledgement marked a pivotal moment in Musk's leadership narrative, revealing the tensions between ambition and caution that had shaped his career. To address the crisis, Musk took a multifaceted approach. He immediately ordered a comprehensive internal review of safety practices and paused further autonomous vehicle deployments until standards were rigorously verified. An independent oversight committee was established, including experts in ethics, engineering, and public safety, to provide transparency and accountability. Musk personally committed to regular public updates, demonstrating a willingness to be held accountable. The process was arduous and at times contentious. Within the company, employees grappled with the conflict between pushing boundaries and adhering to rigorous safety standards. Musk fostered open dialogue, encouraging team members to voice concerns and contribute to solutions. This culture shift toward prioritizing ethical responsibility over speed was a significant departure from earlier leadership tendencies. Publicly, Musk's handling of the crisis received mixed reviews. Some lauded his transparency and corrective actions, viewing them as signs of mature leadership. Others remained skeptical, citing past incidents and the inherent risks of autonomous technologies. Media coverage reflected this ambivalence, balancing praise with critical inquiry. Social media conversations became a battleground of opinions, illustrating the complex relationship between innovation, risk, and trust in the digital age. The incident also reignited debates at Harvard and among policymakers about regulatory frameworks for emerging technologies. Musk participated in panels and workshops aimed at shaping guidelines that balanced innovation with public safety. These forums highlighted the importance of multi-stakeholder engagement, continuous oversight, and adaptive policies in governing disruptive technologies. The crisis had profound personal effects on Musk. The stress and public scrutiny intensified his reflections on the human cost of innovation. He reached out to families affected by incidents related to autonomous vehicle testing, seeking dialogue and expressing empathy. These interactions deepened his commitment to ethical leadership and reinforced the imperative of putting people before progress. Simultaneously, Musk's philanthropic endeavors adapted in response to the crisis. His foundation increased funding for research on AI safety, ethical engineering, and community education programs to foster informed public discourse on technology. These initiatives aligned with Musk's vision of responsible innovation grounded in societal benefit. Meanwhile, the company invested heavily in upgrading its testing protocols, integrating advanced simulations, rigorous human oversight, and enhanced fail-safes. Collaborative partnerships with universities and safety organizations ensured that best practices were continuously developed and shared. This comprehensive response transformed the crisis into an opportunity for learning and improvement. Musk's relationships with Harvard and other academic institutions grew stronger during this period. He supported research projects analyzing the socio-technical dynamics of autonomous systems and contributed to curriculum development focused on ethical engineering and innovation management. These collaborations reflected Musk's belief that bridging academia, industry, and policy was essential for sustainable technological advancement. Internationally, the crisis influenced global conversations about autonomous vehicles and AI governance. Musk engaged with regulatory bodies and international organizations to promote harmonized safety standards and ethical frameworks. His experience underscored the global nature of technological challenges and the need for coordinated responses. Despite the progress made, challenges remained. Balancing the competing demands of innovation, safety, profitability, and public trust was an ongoing struggle. Musk's leadership style continued to evolve, emphasizing patience, listening, and ethical reflection alongside bold vision and decisive action. Media narratives increasingly portrayed Musk as a complex figure, a visionary leader grappling with the profound responsibilities that accompany disruptive technologies. The emotional landscape of Musk's journey was rich and nuanced. The crisis triggered moments of doubt, vulnerability, and resolve. Musk's willingness to confront difficult truths and embrace accountability deepened his connection with employees, partners, and the public. His story resonated as an emblem of leadership in an era defined by rapid change and uncertainty. As this chapter drew to a close, the nation witnessed a leader shaped by both triumphs and trials, navigating the delicate balance between ambition and caution. Musk's handling of the autonomous vehicle safety crisis served as a defining moment in his quest to align innovation with humanity's best interests. It illustrated that true progress demands not only technological breakthroughs but also ethical commitment, transparency, and the courage to face uncomfortable realities. The chapter ended on a note of cautious optimism, reflecting the ongoing journey of a man determined to transform his legacy and contribute meaningfully to the future of society and technology. The aftermath of the autonomous vehicle safety crisis marked a turning point not only for Elon Musk but for the broader technological ecosystem. The intense spotlight on ethics, transparency, and accountability prompted widespread calls for deeper reforms in how innovation was pursued and governed. Against this backdrop, Musk found himself increasingly involved in initiatives aimed at bridging the gap between cutting-edge technology and societal values. One such endeavor emerged from a collaboration with Harvard's Center for Responsible Innovation, where Musk agreed to co-lead a groundbreaking research consortium focused on tech for humanity. This initiative sought to harness emerging technologies to address pressing social issues such as climate change, healthcare accessibility, education equity, and economic inclusion. Musk's participation was both symbolic and substantive. His stature and experience brought significant attention and resources, while his personal journey toward responsible leadership informed the consortium's guiding principles. The consortium assembled a multidisciplinary team of scientists, ethicists, engineers, policy experts, and community representatives. Their goal was to develop frameworks and projects that integrated technological innovation with ethical reflection and social impact assessment. Musk's vision was clear. Technology should serve as a catalyst for human flourishing, not exacerbate existing inequalities or risks. Early projects within the consortium included developing affordable solar energy solutions tailored for underserved communities, creating AI-driven personalized learning tools for students with disabilities, and designing digital platforms that enhanced civic engagement and transparency in local governance. Musk championed bold experimentation, encouraging rapid prototyping paired with rigorous ethical evaluation. The consortium's work attracted considerable public and academic interest. Conferences, workshops, and publications disseminated findings and best practices, influencing policy discussions and corporate strategies worldwide. Musk's role as both a practitioner and advocate of responsible innovation positioned him as a bridge builder between sectors and ideologies. However, the Tech for Humanity initiative also faced inherent tensions. Balancing speed with caution, profit motives with altruism, and technological possibility with societal readiness required constant negotiation. Musk acknowledged these challenges openly, emphasizing that mistakes were inevitable but must be met with humility and corrective action. Internally, Musk's companies began embedding consortium principles into their operations. Cross-functional teams evaluated projects through ethical impact lenses, and new metrics tracked social and environmental outcomes alongside financial performance. These shifts reflected a cultural transformation toward holistic responsibility. Public reception was generally positive, with many praising Musk's commitment to aligning technology with humanity's broader needs. Yet, skeptics warned against potential greenwashing or ethical window dressing, urging vigilance and independent oversight. Musk welcomed these critiques, viewing them as essential to maintaining integrity and trust. On a personal level, Musk's engagement with the Tech for Humanity consortium deepened his reflections on legacy and purpose. Conversations with Harvard scholars and consortium members challenged him to articulate not only what technology could do but why it mattered. These dialogues enriched Musk's philosophical outlook, inspiring new initiatives that linked innovation with meaning and values. The emotional complexity of Musk's journey was ever present. He wrestled with the weight of expectations, the burden of past mistakes, and the hope for redemption and impact. These tensions fueled his drive but also reminded him of the human dimensions underpinning every technological advance. Outside the consortium, Musk's influence rippled through global innovation ecosystems. Governments, nonprofits, and businesses sought to emulate the integrative approach championed by Tech for Humanity. Collaborative networks emerged, fostering knowledge exchange and joint problem-solving across borders and disciplines. Musk's advocacy for ethical innovation shaped policy agendas and funding priorities, helping to shift the narrative from unchecked disruption to inclusive progress. Academically, Musk's ongoing partnership with Harvard blossomed into a new endowed chair focused on the intersection of technology, ethics, and society. This professorship attracted leading scholars and practitioners, generating cutting-edge research and thought leadership. Musk occasionally lectured, sharing insights from his unique vantage point as a high-profile entrepreneur navigating ethical challenges. Meanwhile, media coverage reflected the evolving perception of Musk. Profiles and documentaries explored his complex identity as both a visionary disruptor and a conscientious leader striving to reconcile ambition with responsibility. Public discourse acknowledged the imperfect but earnest nature of his transformation. As this chapter unfolded, Musk also faced personal crossroads. Balancing the demands of multiple high-profile projects with family life and personal well-being required deliberate effort. Musk prioritized quality time with loved ones, embracing the grounding power of relationships amidst public chaos. These moments of connection reaffirmed his commitment to values beyond business and technology. Despite significant progress, challenges persisted. Rapid technological change continued to outpace regulatory frameworks and public understanding. Musk remained vigilant against complacency, advocating for continuous learning, adaptability, and humility in leadership. He recognized that the journey toward responsible innovation was ongoing and collective. This chapter concluded with a renewed sense of purpose and cautious optimism. Elon Musk emerged as a figure embodying the complex interplay between innovation, ethics, and society. His involvement in the Tech for Humanity consortium symbolized a commitment to shaping a future where technology uplifted all people rather than a select few. The nation and world watched as Musk's story evolved, no longer solely about disruption and controversy but about healing, collaboration, and hope for a more just and sustainable tomorrow. Elon Musk's journey into the realm of ethical innovation and public service had taken him far from the relentless pursuit of disruption that once defined him. As his involvement with Harvard's Center for Responsible Innovation and the Tech for Humanity consortium deepened, a new challenge emerged, one that threatened to shake his transformed public image and test the very values he had embraced. A well-funded group of critics, including former allies and business rivals, launched a high-profile campaign questioning the transparency and inclusivity of Musk's projects. They argued that despite Musk's proclamations of ethical leadership, his companies still wielded disproportionate influence, potentially sidelining marginalized communities and prioritizing profit over genuine social impact. The campaign leveraged investigative journalism, social media activism, and political lobbying to scrutinize Musk's ventures, seeking to hold him accountable to the highest standards of social justice and corporate responsibility. The accusation stung. Musk was no stranger to criticism, but this wave cut deeper because it came from voices within the innovation ecosystem who had once supported or admired him. It challenged him not just as a businessman but as a leader who claimed to represent a new model of responsible innovation. Musk responded with a combination of humility, openness, and resolve. Rather than dismissing the critiques, he invited the campaign leaders to engage in dialogue and proposed forming an independent advisory board to audit and guide his company's social impact strategies. This gesture was unprecedented in Musk's career and signaled a willingness to embrace accountability mechanisms beyond internal controls. The ensuing discussions were intense and at times confrontational. Musk listened to testimonies from community activists, ethicists, employees, and affected stakeholders. He acknowledged gaps and unintended consequences in some initiatives and committed to concrete reforms aimed at enhancing inclusivity, transparency, and shared governance. Internally, Musk's companies began implementing changes recommended by the advisory board. These included establishing community liaison offices, increasing diversity in leadership positions, adopting participatory decision-making processes, and publishing detailed social impact reports accessible to the public. Musk also championed employee training programs focused on equity, cultural competence, and ethical innovation. The process was neither smooth nor swift. Resistance from some executives and operational challenges emerged, but Musk's persistent emphasis on values and collaboration helped sustain momentum. Over time, tangible improvements were documented, boosting morale among employees and rebuilding trust with communities. The media narrative shifted accordingly, portraying Musk's efforts as a hard-fought but meaningful step toward integrating social justice into technological innovation. These developments influenced broader conversations about corporate accountability in the tech sector. Musk's experience highlighted the complexity of balancing visionary leadership with participatory governance. Scholars at Harvard and beyond used the case to study models of stakeholder engagement, power dynamics, and institutional change. Musk's involvement in these academic debates further refined his understanding and leadership approach. On the global stage, Musk advocated for international standards and frameworks to ensure that technological advancements benefited diverse populations equitably. He participated in forums hosted by the United Nations, World Economic Forum, and other multinational bodies, pushing for collaborative policies that addressed digital divides, labor rights, and environmental justice. These efforts reinforced Musk's emerging role as a global ambassador for ethical innovation. Meanwhile, Musk's personal life reflected the strains and growth accompanying these public challenges. He relied heavily on his close circle of family and trusted advisors for support and perspective. Moments of introspection and vulnerability deepened his emotional resilience and commitment to living his values authentically. He increasingly emphasized balance and self-care, recognizing that sustainable leadership required holistic well-being. The emotional texture of this chapter was rich with tension, courage, and transformation. Musk confronted the limits of his influence and the necessity of shared power and responsibility. He grappled with the paradox of being both a disruptive innovator and a servant leader accountable to a broad constituency. This dialectic shaped his evolving identity and mission. As this chapter drew to a close, Elon Musk stood at a critical juncture. The campaign against him had forced a reckoning, but it had also opened new possibilities for deepening the integration of ethics and social justice into innovation. Musk's willingness to engage openly and implement reforms marked a significant evolution in leadership for the 21st century. The nation and the world watched with cautious hope as Musk's story continued to unfold, not as a tale of unchecked ambition but as an ongoing journey toward responsible and inclusive progress. Following the intense scrutiny and reforms that marked the previous chapter of his career, Elon Musk found himself navigating the intricate landscape of public trust and corporate responsibility with a renewed sense of purpose. The pushback from critics, once a source of frustration, now served as a catalyst for deeper self-examination and meaningful change. However, the path was far from smooth, and new obstacles loomed on the horizon. One of the most significant challenges arose when a leaked internal report revealed that some of Musk's companies had inadvertently contributed to environmental degradation despite their green technology focus. The report detailed issues such as improper disposal of industrial waste and overlooked impacts on local ecosystems. This revelation ignited another wave of public outrage and media frenzy, threatening to unravel the progress Musk had painstakingly built in ethical leadership and social accountability. Musk reacted swiftly. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, he publicly accepted responsibility and vowed to address the shortcomings transparently. He initiated a comprehensive environmental audit across all his companies and pledged to invest heavily in corrective measures, including state-of-the-art waste management systems, habitat restoration projects, and community engagement programs. This moment tested Musk's commitment to the principles he had espoused. Skeptics questioned whether the response was genuine or merely damage control, while supporters saw it as further evidence of Musk's evolving maturity and accountability. Internally, the revelation sparked vigorous debate and reflection. Employees, many of whom had joined Musk's ventures inspired by the vision of sustainable innovation, felt a sense of betrayal but also a renewed call to action. Musk encouraged open forums for dialogue, fostering a culture of transparency and collective problem-solving. This cultural shift was crucial for rebuilding morale and aligning operational practices with ethical standards. Musk's approach included appointing an independent environmental oversight committee with experts and community representatives to monitor progress and report publicly. The committee's findings were made available through regular updates, reinforcing transparency and trust. These efforts extended beyond immediate remediation. Musk's companies began integrating environmental impact assessments into all stages of product development and operations, ensuring sustainability was embedded in decision-making processes rather than an afterthought. Collaborations with environmental organizations and academic institutions enhanced these initiatives, bringing scientific rigor and community perspectives into the fold. The media landscape reflected a complex narrative. Coverage balanced critiques of past failures with recognition of Musk's proactive steps and openness. Opinion pieces debated the broader challenges of balancing technological progress with ecological stewardship, often citing Musk's experience as a cautionary yet hopeful example. Public discourse increasingly acknowledged that innovation must be coupled with humility and vigilance to avoid unintended harms. On the policy front, Musk's environmental accountability crisis accelerated momentum for stricter regulations and standards in the tech and manufacturing sectors. Musk actively participated in policy dialogues, advocating for frameworks that incentivized sustainable practices and penalized negligence. His voice lent weight to calls for global cooperation on environmental governance, especially regarding emerging technologies. This period also deepened Musk's personal reflections on the interconnectedness of technological, social, and ecological systems. Conversations with scientists, indigenous leaders, and environmental activists broadened his perspective, inspiring a holistic approach to innovation that prioritized planetary health alongside human progress. These dialogues influenced Musk's philanthropic initiatives, which expanded to support environmental justice, conservation, and climate resilience projects in vulnerable communities worldwide. Emotionally, Musk's journey was marked by humility, determination, and a renewed sense of stewardship. The environmental crisis and its aftermath challenged his ego and assumptions but also reinforced his resolve to lead with integrity and compassion. He increasingly spoke about the responsibility of innovators to consider the full life cycle impacts of their creations and to engage meaningfully with affected communities. The cultural transformation within Musk's companies was evident. Teams embraced sustainability as a core value, celebrating successes and learning from failures. This cultural alignment strengthened organizational cohesion and public perception. Academically, Harvard and other institutions featured Musk's environmental accountability saga in curricula and research exploring the ethics of innovation, corporate governance, and sustainability. Musk's active engagement with these academic conversations enriched both theory and practice, bridging gaps between scholarship and industry. As the chapter drew to a close, the nation and global community observed a leader shaped by trials, introspection, and growth. Musk's handling of the environmental crisis underscored the complexities of responsible innovation in a rapidly changing world. His journey illustrated that progress required not only technological breakthroughs but also a steadfast commitment to ethics, transparency, and ecological mindfulness. The story resonated as a powerful reminder that even the most visionary leaders must remain grounded in the realities and responsibilities of their actions. With cautious optimism, the chapter ended on a note of resilience and forward-looking determination. Musk's evolving legacy embodied the promise and perils of the 21st century's innovation landscape, a narrative still unfolding, rich with challenges and opportunities for transformative impact. After weathering the environmental accountability storm, Elon Musk's journey continued toward an even more complex and unexpected frontier, the world of education reform. Having long expressed an interest in transforming traditional systems, Musk now saw education as the next vital arena to apply his vision of innovation intertwined with ethical responsibility. The U.S. education system, with its persistent inequalities, outdated curricula, and uneven access to resources, presented a daunting challenge. Yet, Musk believed that technology could serve as a powerful lever to democratize learning and prepare future generations for the rapidly changing world. Musk's involvement began with a partnership proposal to Harvard's Graduate School of Education and other leading institutions to co-develop an ambitious initiative named Future Learning Labs. The project aimed to design and implement scalable, technology-enhanced educational models focused on personalized learning, critical thinking, and social-emotional skills. This vision reflected Musk's evolving philosophy that education must go beyond rote memorization to nurture creativity, ethical awareness, and adaptability. The Future Learning Labs assembled diverse teams of educators, technologists, psychologists, and community leaders to prototype innovative approaches in both urban and rural school districts. Using AI-driven platforms, virtual and augmented reality experiences, and project-based curricula, the initiative sought to tailor learning to individual student needs and contexts while fostering collaboration and empathy. Musk personally invested significant resources and time in the project, regularly engaging with teachers, students, and researchers to understand challenges and co-create solutions. His hands-on approach was a departure from the more distant leadership style of his earlier ventures, reflecting a deeper appreciation for the complexities and human dimensions of education. The launch of pilot programs sparked excitement and optimism. Early feedback highlighted increased student engagement, improved academic outcomes, and enhanced social skills. However, the implementation also surfaced hurdles such as technological access gaps, teacher training needs, and resistance from some traditional education stakeholders wary of rapid change. Musk acknowledged these obstacles candidly and committed to iterative refinement and inclusive dialogue. Addressing the digital divide became a central focus. Musk's companies collaborated to expand affordable internet access and provide devices to underserved communities, ensuring that technology-enabled learning was equitable. Training programs equipped educators with skills and confidence to integrate new tools effectively. Additionally, continuous community engagement helped align innovations with local values and priorities. Media coverage portrayed the initiative as a bold experiment in reimagining education, blending hope with skepticism. Commentators debated the role of technology versus human relationships in learning and raised questions about privacy, data security, and the risk of widening inequalities if access was uneven. Musk participated openly in these discussions, emphasizing transparency and ethical safeguards. His engagement fostered trust and accountability, contributing to a nuanced public conversation. The educational reform efforts resonated globally. Musk connected with international organizations and governments exploring similar challenges. The Future Learning Labs served as a model and incubator for adaptable, culturally sensitive educational innovations worldwide. Musk's advocacy for education as a foundation for equitable technological futures gained traction across diverse contexts. At Harvard, the initiative inspired new interdisciplinary courses and research centers focused on the intersections of technology, ethics, and pedagogy. Students and faculty engaged deeply with Musk's projects, contributing fresh ideas and rigorous evaluation. Musk occasionally lectured, sharing insights from his experiences and emphasizing the importance of continuous learning and ethical reflection. Personally, Musk found the education reform journey deeply fulfilling yet demanding. Engaging with young learners, educators, and communities grounded him and provided perspective beyond the fast-paced world of high-tech entrepreneurship. These relationships nurtured empathy and reinforced his commitment to serving broader societal needs. The emotional landscape of this chapter was rich with hope, challenge, and transformation. Musk grappled with balancing visionary goals with humility, listening carefully to diverse voices and adapting accordingly. This chapter highlighted the evolving nature of leadership in a complex, interconnected world. As the chapter drew to a close, the nation witnessed a leader not only pioneering technology but also investing in the human capital essential for a just and sustainable future. Musk's education reform efforts symbolized the next frontier in his ongoing quest to align innovation with ethical responsibility and social impact. The story ended on a note of cautious optimism and continued commitment, underscoring that meaningful change requires collaboration, patience, and an unwavering focus on shared values and humanity's collective well-being. Elon Musk's deepening engagement with education reform and ethical innovation inevitably brought him into contact with a new and powerful adversary, entrenched political interests resistant to change. Despite his growing reputation as a responsible and visionary leader, Musk soon realized that transforming education, and more broadly, the technological landscape, would require navigating complex political landscapes fraught with competing agendas, entrenched bureaucracies, and ideological divisions. The resistance manifested in subtle and overt ways. Powerful lobbying groups representing traditional education providers and technology competitors mobilized to slow or block reforms that threatened established financial interests or ideological preferences. Some politicians publicly criticized Musk's initiatives as elitist or technocratic, claiming they undermined local control and cultural values. This political pushback escalated tensions and complicated the implementation of the future learning labs and other projects Musk championed. Musk, accustomed to disruption and challenge in the tech world, found the political arena uniquely frustrating. Unlike markets driven by innovation and competition, politics involved negotiation, compromise, and power plays that often prioritized short-term gain over long-term societal benefits. Musk's direct and sometimes blunt communication style, effective in business, occasionally clashed with political norms of diplomacy and coalition building. Recognizing these dynamics, Musk adapted his approach. He assembled a dedicated government relations team staffed with experienced political strategists, policy experts, and community advocates to build bridges and foster dialogue. Musk himself increased his participation in bipartisan forums, congressional hearings, and public town halls to explain his vision, address concerns, and seek common ground. These efforts required patience and humility. Musk listened carefully to diverse perspectives, including critics, to identify shared values and opportunities for collaboration. He acknowledged the legitimacy of concerns about equity, privacy, and cultural relevance, emphasizing that his initiatives were designed to be adaptable and inclusive. Over time, Musk's persistence yielded breakthroughs. Some lawmakers who initially opposed the reforms became allies after witnessing pilot program successes and hearing from constituents who benefited. Bipartisan coalitions emerged to support policies promoting technology-enabled education and ethical innovation frameworks. Musk's companies also engaged in public-private partnerships to expand infrastructure and resources in underserved areas, demonstrating tangible community impact. The media portrayed these political struggles as emblematic of broader societal debates about technology's role and governance. Editorials and analysis highlighted the tensions between innovation and tradition, progress and caution. Musk's willingness to engage openly and seek compromise earned cautious respect, though skeptics remained vigilant. The political dimension added complexity to Musk's leadership journey, illustrating that technological change alone could not solve systemic challenges. Institutional and cultural factors required equally thoughtful and inclusive strategies. Academics at Harvard and elsewhere studied Musk's navigation of political obstacles as a case in point for the importance of adaptive leadership and stakeholder engagement in innovation governance. Meanwhile, Musk's personal life was affected by the political battles. The stresses of public scrutiny and negotiation took a toll, but Musk found strength in his support network and moments of reflection. He increasingly spoke about the need for leaders to cultivate empathy, resilience, and a willingness to listen deeply. The emotional undertone of this chapter was marked by frustration, growth, and cautious optimism. Musk confronted the limits of individual influence and the necessity of collective action and patience. He balanced idealism with realism, learning that change was often incremental and required building broad alliances. As the chapter concluded, Musk's story embodied the intricate interplay of innovation, ethics, and politics in shaping society's future. His evolving leadership demonstrated that visionary ideas must be paired with collaborative strategies and cultural sensitivity to succeed in complex democratic contexts. The nation and the world observed a leader adapting to new realities, striving to transform not only technology but the systems and values that govern its use. The chapter closed on a note of perseverance and hope, underscoring that responsible innovation demands both bold vision and grounded pragmatism to navigate the ever-shifting political landscape. Elon Musk's journey through the tangled web of politics and innovation set the stage for his next monumental challenge, confronting the rapidly evolving ethical dilemmas of artificial intelligence. As AI technologies surged ahead, with applications touching nearly every aspect of daily life, from autonomous vehicles and healthcare diagnostics to surveillance systems and decision-making algorithms, the questions about control, bias, and human impact became urgent and unavoidable. Musk, who had previously voiced concerns about unchecked AI risks, now found himself at the forefront of efforts to establish ethical frameworks and regulatory standards to guide AI development responsibly. The launch of the AI Ethics Initiative, a collaboration between Musk's companies, Harvard's Institute for Ethics in Artificial Intelligence, and international partners, marked a new chapter in Musk's evolving leadership. The initiative sought to bring together technologists, ethicists, policymakers, and civil society to create transparent, inclusive, and enforceable guidelines for AI design, deployment, and oversight. Musk's vision was ambitious: to ensure that AI technologies would augment human potential without exacerbating inequalities, infringing on privacy, or undermining autonomy. Early meetings revealed deep divides among stakeholders. Some technologists prioritized rapid innovation and competitiveness, wary of overregulation stifling progress. Others emphasized precaution, advocating strict controls to prevent misuse and harm. Civil rights groups highlighted risks of bias and discrimination encoded in AI systems, calling for accountability and redress mechanisms. Governments wrestled with balancing economic opportunities and societal protections. Musk played a pivotal role as both convener and mediator. Drawing on his experience navigating business and political landscapes, he encouraged open dialogue and sought common ground. His willingness to publicly acknowledge AI's dual-use risks and his call for international cooperation lent credibility and urgency to the initiative. The process was painstaking and often contentious. Drafting ethical principles involved reconciling conflicting values, priorities, and cultural perspectives. Musk championed transparency, insisting that AI algorithms and datasets be auditable and that affected communities have a voice in governance. The initiative also emphasized the importance of human oversight and fail-safes to prevent unintended consequences. As debates unfolded, Musk confronted uncomfortable truths about the limitations and unintended impacts of AI. Case studies revealed instances where AI systems perpetuated biases against marginalized groups, made opaque decisions in critical areas like criminal justice and employment, and concentrated power among a few corporate entities. These findings reinforced the need for vigilance and humility in AI development. Musk's companies undertook internal reviews and adopted rigorous ethical standards aligned with the initiative's principles. They invested in research to improve AI fairness, explainability, and inclusiveness. Musk also advocated for workforce transition programs to help workers displaced by AI automation, underscoring the social dimensions of technological change. The media spotlight on the AI Ethics Initiative was intense. Coverage ranged from hopeful portrayals of Musk's leadership in shaping a responsible AI future to skeptical critiques questioning the sincerity and enforceability of voluntary standards. Public discourse reflected broader anxieties about AI's impact on privacy, jobs, and human agency. Musk engaged openly with journalists and public forums, emphasizing the collective responsibility to guide AI toward beneficial outcomes. Academically, the initiative's work influenced new research agendas and curricula, bridging gaps between computer science, ethics, law, and social sciences. Harvard played a central role in fostering interdisciplinary scholarship and training future leaders equipped to navigate AI's complexities. On a personal level, Musk experienced a profound sense of responsibility and urgency. The AI challenge was global, multifaceted, and high-stakes, demanding not only technical expertise but moral clarity and collaborative spirit. Musk reflected on the evolution of his leadership, from a disruptive entrepreneur to a steward of ethical innovation, and recognized the ongoing need for humility, dialogue, and adaptability. Emotionally, the chapter was charged with tension, hope, and resolve. Musk grappled with the paradox of AI's promise and peril, striving to harness its transformative potential while guarding against harm. His commitment to transparency, inclusivity, and accountability reflected an emerging leadership paradigm attuned to the ethical imperatives of the 21st century. As the chapter drew to a close, Musk's AI Ethics Initiative was gaining momentum, influencing policy discussions, industry practices, and public awareness worldwide. The nation and global community watched a leader endeavoring to shape not only technological trajectories but also the moral frameworks guiding humanity's future. The chapter ended on a note of cautious optimism and determination, highlighting that the governance of AI, and by extension, all-powerful technologies, requires sustained collaboration, ethical vigilance, and visionary yet grounded leadership. As the AI ethics initiative gained traction worldwide, Elon Musk's leadership faced its most profound test yet, one that would pit his vision, values, and resilience against a scandal threatening to unravel years of progress. The controversy began quietly with whistleblower reports alleging that one of Musk's AI divisions had knowingly deployed a facial recognition system with inherent racial biases in law enforcement trials. The technology, intended to assist in identifying suspects and improving public safety, had instead led to multiple wrongful detentions, sparking outrage from civil rights organizations, activists, and the public. The news broke in national headlines with explosive impact, reigniting debates about surveillance, privacy, and systemic discrimination. Musk's reputation as a pioneer of ethical innovation seemed imperiled, and critics accused him of hypocrisy, championing AI ethics publicly while tolerating harmful applications behind closed doors. Musk responded swiftly with a rare public apology, acknowledging the failures and the pain caused. He ordered an immediate suspension of the controversial AI program and commissioned an independent investigation led by a coalition of experts from academia, civil society, and affected communities. This moment marked a crucial inflection point in Musk's leadership journey. The scandal challenged his capacity for transparency, accountability, and empathy amid intense scrutiny and pressure. Musk engaged personally with victims' families, community leaders, and civil rights advocates to listen, learn, and seek reparative actions. Internally, the company underwent deep soul-searching and reform. The investigation uncovered systemic issues including insufficient bias testing, lack of community consultation, and inadequate oversight mechanisms. Musk implemented sweeping changes to governance structures, embedding ethical review boards with diverse representation and mandatory bias audits for all AI projects. Training programs focused on equity, cultural competence, and human rights became integral to company culture. The crisis galvanized a broader reckoning across the tech industry and government. Musk's public commitment to reform spurred new regulations mandating transparency, bias mitigation, and community participation in AI deployment, especially in sensitive applications like law enforcement and social services. The scandal underscored the limits of voluntary guidelines and the necessity for enforceable standards and independent oversight. Media coverage reflected the complex emotions surrounding the episode, disappointment, anger, but also cautious hope in Musk's responsive leadership. Commentators debated the inherent challenges of balancing innovation with ethical imperatives, using Musk's experience as a case study for both failures and possibilities of accountability. Harvard's academic community responded with robust dialogue and research, examining the intersection of technology, justice, and public trust. Courses and conferences featured Musk's scandal and recovery efforts to explore how ethical lapses can be addressed through systemic change and collaborative governance. Musk's personal reflections during this turbulent period revealed a leader grappling deeply with the consequences of technological power. He spoke publicly about the weight of responsibility, the need for humility, and the imperative to center affected communities in decision-making. Musk emphasized that mistakes, while painful, must drive growth and transformation rather than denial or defensiveness. Emotionally, this chapter was marked by vulnerability, reckoning, and resolve. Musk's confrontation with the scandal humanized him in the eyes of many, portraying a leader willing to face failures honestly and work toward redemption. This transparency fostered renewed trust and strengthened his vision for ethical innovation. As the chapter closed, Musk's companies emerged more resilient, guided by strengthened ethical frameworks and an inclusive culture. The scandal and its aftermath became a pivotal moment of growth, highlighting the complexity and stakes of integrating advanced technologies into society. The nation and global observers witnessed a dramatic saga of power, fallibility, and renewal, a testament to the ongoing journey of leadership in the age of transformative technology. The story ended with a powerful message: that the pursuit of progress demands not only brilliance and ambition but also unwavering integrity, accountability, and the courage to confront and learn from failure. The scandal had tested Elon Musk in ways few imagined possible, but it also marked the beginning of a new era for him, one defined not only by technological ambition but by a deeper, more reflective leadership that embraced responsibility, humility, and the power of collective progress. As the dust settled, Musk turned his focus to healing fractured trust and building a legacy that transcended innovation alone. Central to this was his renewed partnership with Harvard University, whose initial public critique had sparked the very transformation that reshaped Musk's path. Together, they launched the Ethical Leadership in Technology program, a groundbreaking initiative aimed at educating future leaders about the intricate balance between innovation, ethics, and social impact. This program combined rigorous academic study with real-world case analyses, Musk's journey serving as a primary example, highlighting how leaders can navigate complexity, learn from failure, and drive positive change. The collaboration also expanded scholarships and fellowships for students from underrepresented communities, reinforcing Musk's commitment to equity and inclusion. At the same time, Musk's companies adopted new governance models emphasizing transparency, stakeholder engagement, and continuous ethical evaluation. Independent advisory boards, including ethicists, community representatives, and former critics, now regularly reviewed projects and policies. This openness fostered a culture where dissent and dialogue were encouraged, helping to prevent blind spots and ensuring technology served humanity's best interests. Musk himself embraced a more collaborative leadership style. He increased engagement with diverse voices, from grassroots activists to global policymakers, acknowledging that solving society's greatest challenges required collective wisdom and shared responsibility. Public appearances became platforms not just to showcase innovation but to listen, reflect, and inspire. This shift did not come easily. Musk candidly spoke about the emotional and intellectual challenges of evolving beyond the archetype of the lone visionary entrepreneur. He described moments of doubt, discomfort, and the necessity of surrendering control to build trust and community. His transformation was neither linear nor perfect, but it was authentic and deeply human. The media narrative surrounding Musk also transformed. From sensational headlines focused on conflict and controversy, coverage matured into nuanced explorations of leadership, ethics, and the evolving role of technology in society. Documentaries, podcasts, and books chronicled Musk's journey, emphasizing lessons learned and the ongoing quest to align innovation with humanity's highest values. Public discourse shifted toward a more hopeful, constructive tone, recognizing that while technology carries risks, it also holds immense potential to enhance lives when guided wisely. Harvard's role in this evolution was pivotal. Faculty and students continued to push boundaries in interdisciplinary research, exploring how emerging technologies intersect with justice, environment, and human dignity. Their work influenced policy and industry practices worldwide. Musk's collaboration with the university became a symbol of the power of critical engagement and partnership between academia and industry. On a personal level, Musk found profound fulfillment in mentoring young leaders, sharing candid stories of success and failure, and advocating for leadership that embraces empathy and ethical courage. He emphasized that true innovation is inseparable from responsibility and that legacy is built not only on breakthroughs but on the impact made on people's lives. The emotional tone of this concluding chapter was one of redemption, hope, and maturity. Musk's evolution from a disruptive force to a steward of ethical progress mirrored broader societal shifts grappling with the promises and perils of the digital age. His story became a beacon for those striving to innovate conscientiously amidst complexity. As the narrative drew to a close, Musk reflected on the journey that had begun with public humiliation and criticism but ultimately led to transformation and renewed purpose. The closing lines echoed a powerful life lesson: true greatness lies not in never falling, but in rising stronger, wiser, and more compassionate each time. Innovation without integrity is empty, progress without empathy is hollow. But when we dare to learn, listen, and lead with heart, we can build a future where technology and humanity thrive together. The nation and the world watched as Elon Musk embodied this vision, inspiring a new generation of leaders to pursue not just success, but significance. The story ended with an invitation, an open call for all to engage, reflect, and contribute to shaping a just, inclusive, and hopeful technological future. The journey was far from over, but the foundation was laid. The final message resonated clearly: in the face of challenge and change, love, integrity, and community light the way forward. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?